shot down from behind by an unknown silhouette.
Wow.
And we see that the children, Valentine uses D4C to essentially teleport over to Johnny by going behind the same location.
Wow, that is busted. Gotta eat my pineapple. Yo, what's going on YouTube? Sorry about that. Today we're going to be reacting to the most confusing stands in all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This video is going to be a little bit interesting to me because I think the most confusing stand to me was I think it was the soft and wet stand. Just the way I did a reaction on that. I did a reaction on the soft and wet stand, the breakdown. The way it was broken down to me was a little bit confusing, but I had to go back and rewatch it a couple times just to get a better understanding. But I feel like still, I feel like now I have a more clear understanding of that stand. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, there's no real stand in JoJo that that's confusing to me so far. And obviously in the anime, I haven't gotten up to any stands yet. Just off like the different breakdown videos I've done on YouTube on different stands that I've seen, there were just like a few stands that confused me at first, but then I went back and like I said, I rewatched it and it made sense. I'm just watching it by myself. So I'm pretty interested in checking out this video and see what this channel considers the most confusing stand in JoJo's. And yeah, man, that's all I got, man. Let's check out this video and see what the most confusing stand in JoJo is.
Fans of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I'm sure we could all agree that the series is no stranger to making its readers feel confused at times.
Yeah, so I think it's on the manga side, more on the manga side.
But for the most part, so whenever JoJo leaves you disoriented, it's for a reason. Whether it's to instill the fear of the unknown by putting the readers in the perspective of its characters being attacked by a stand whose ability is unknown. And something I've noticed the series creator Hirohiko Araki really likes to do,
every time I see Dio walk like that,
the series main villains,
that's so crazy
is to
me.
show an impossible situation that doesn't make any sense at first, but later be explained after a stand's ability is revealed. Like in Stardust Crusaders, when Polnareff had encountered Dio nearing the end of the part, and each step Polnareff took towards Dio, he would suddenly appear back at the bottom of the stairs, and had described his experience with Dio's stand as being completely beyond his understanding, leaving both the characters and us the viewers pretty confused. But later, once the world's ability was revealed as being able to stop time, it explains Polnareff's experience, which turned out to just be Dio stopping time, walking down the stairs, picking Polnareff up, putting him back at the bottom of the stairs,
that is crazy. Okay, so that's what happens.
And this is just one example of Araki's intentional confusion writing
Interesting.
technique.
So that was more intentional,
video,
I guess.
I'll be attempting to explain by far the most convoluted, incomprehensible, and confusing sequence of events in all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Let me hear it. Damn, he fell head first.
Wait,
that's a concussion.
Did you guys think this video was going to be about King Crimson? Oh, damn. If you thought King Crimson was confusing, just wait until you get to D4C.
D4C, okay. I feel like now that I think about it, if I had to pick one stand that was confusing, I'd say it was
King
D4C.
Crimson, but rather dirty deeds done dirt cheap from the 7th part of JoJo's Steel Ball Run.
Not even in the actual anime yet.
Specifically, D4C's introduction arc and the sequence of events leading up to the reveal of the stand's ability, which is another one of those impossible situation scenarios we talked about earlier, and in my opinion is the most confusing arc in all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And I'm sure those that have read Steel Ball Run could agree. So what is it
I can't wait till I read this.
Arc that makes it so
my eyes are getting
confusing?
fucked up.
Well, pretty much everything. This arc has a lot of moving parts and contains a lot of characters, all with their own motives working separate.
What the heck? This guy looks interesting. Waffle head? He has like different waffle patches on his head.
From one another. Moving around the streets of Philadelphia as we go
Philly, wow, that's from okay, if you guys don't know, I was born and raised in New Jersey, which is like 15 minutes from Philadelphia.
Different characters' perspectives.
I might resonate with this character.
Of who shot Johnny Joestar.
Jesus Christ, though.
And his yet to be revealed D4C
he blicked his ass.
Pulling the strings. But before I attempt to explain what was really happening during this arc and how D4C was being used, we'll first go through the arc as it's presented in the manga to serve as a refresher and also to show just how confusing this arc is from a first-time viewer's
Why is that green way in the
stand? So if anyone still doubts that this isn't the most confusing
he got a
JoJo
face shot.
Just try and follow along. But first, let's prepare, because this is going to be long and hard to follow. So when I first got the idea to break down this arc, I thought, what would be the best way to accurately and comprehensively go through this arc? And I realized that the manga panels weren't going to cut it for visual aids. So I decided to recreate the entire location that this arc took place in via a 3D model. I installed Blender and started messing around with blocks and textures for a few hours until I
put in
realized
work in this
Blender
video. I
is
appreciate
really
that.
complicated. So I got some help from one of our community members Dicky, who I commissioned to help me out with this video and recreate the streets of Philadelphia way better than I ever could have. So shout out to Dicky, links to his social media are down below in the description. And to briefly talk about the 3D model itself, this is the most accurate recreation we came up with that best represents this arc's location. Although some liberties were taken, because in the manga, some parts of the city were drawn differently from chapter to chapter, most notably being the park's entrance. And also, the model has all the streets closed off that would otherwise be much longer, and this was due to only wanting to focus on the parts of the street relevant to the arc. But other than that, it's pretty damn accurate. So finally, let's get started. The arc begins at chapter 64, where the steel ball run race is nearing its final stage, and all of our main characters, along with the holy corpse parts, are beginning to converge on the streets.
Hold on a sec, I need to see these characters. These are new characters I've never seen before, obviously, because in the manga. This guy, ice going on. We got this guy in the middle. I'm really interested to see what this guy's about with the waffle head, you know. How the fuck did he get patches of waffles on his chin and his cheek?
Of Philadelphia. We first see Johnny and Gyro, who arrive from the east, who are currently tracking down Diego Brando, who is in possession of the left eye. Gyro proceeds to eat some horse shit off the ground and determines that Diego must be close by. They then spot Diego on horseback running down an alleyway on the other side of the park, while also spotting Wekapipo, who also seems to be tracking down Diego. Johnny and Gyro choose to ignore Wekapipo for now and continue chasing Diego by splitting up and sandwiching him from both sides. And before we go any further, it's important to take note of the characters we saw inside of the park when Diego was first spotted. We see a group of children, a pair of twins, and a painter, who will be extremely important later in the arc. And also during this arc, Araki provides a few timestamps, which help a little bit at making this arc less confusing,
timestamps in a
but
manga
just
panel?
a little bit. So right before Johnny and Gyro split up, the time is 3:39 p.m. What I thought at first, but after rereading this arc more than a handful of times, times just weren't adding up, making this arc even more of a headache than it already was. So I checked the original Japanese pages, and with the help of some of the community's translators, we found that the English scans had a small typo, and the time here was actually 3:59 p.m., which made everything make a lot more sense. So it turns out for a lot of English readers, even if someone really tried to understand this arc's timeline by paying close attention and rereading, it still wouldn't make sense because of the typo, but thankfully since now it's been fixed. So to continue on, Johnny and Gyro split up. Gyro follows Diego and Johnny doubles back around to corner him, but Johnny keeps his eye on Gyro for just a moment and behind, and suddenly Valentine also appears and they both head towards Gyro. Valentine summons his D4C and Johnny yells out to warn Gyro, but suddenly Johnny is shot down from behind by an unknown silhouette. And we see that the children, the twins, and the painter inside the park all witness Johnny being shot. Johnny is then shot 3 more times and escapes through a sewer grate using Tusk Act 3. Gyro rushes over to see what happened, and he sees Wekapipo in an alleyway just by where Johnny was shot, but he's soon attacked by Disco, and they will continue to fight for the next few minutes. After Gyro defeats Disco, he goes back to the scene of the shooting to investigate, and he notices the people inside the park and asks them if they saw who shot Johnny. The children say it was Diego, but the twins say
sounds like a title of like a good movie, like a mystery movie.
It was Wekapipo, and the painter says it was Valentine. Gyro is understandably confused by this and ponders how this could be possible. We then get some transition panels representing a change in time as we cut over to Diego approaching Wekapipo from behind, saying Johnny Joestar is better left alive, on the verge of death but not beyond. Wekapipo responds, "You stayed quiet, yes Dio, about the fact that Magenta was alive." I'm quoting this because it will be important to remember later. Also, I assume this conversation took place while Gyro was fighting Disco because of how Wekapipo is peeking his head around the corner like when Gyro saw him earlier. We then cut to a flashback of Jesus Christ hanging on the cross and coming back from the dead because, you know, this is JoJo. So after some history about the corpse parts, we then come back to Steel Ball Run present time, but 8 minutes before we last saw Gyro at 4:05 p.m., where Gyro and Johnny are discussing their plan to corner Diego. But this time we see the events that took place in those 8 minutes leading up to Johnny's shooting through Wekapipo's perspective. So Wekapipo also notices Diego run by as Johnny and Gyro do, and he decides that if he wants to defeat the president, then he should be with Diego because Diego has a corpse part and Valentine Valentine wants it. So I guess his plan is
Does
to attack
Wekapipo have a
Valentine
stand?
while Valentine is attacking Diego.
Seems like he needs
so
help.
Wekapipo follows Diego and on his way passes by Disco, who is currently heading towards Gyro. Wekapipo loses track of Diego and finds himself on an empty street with a gun on the ground. He's then attacked by a silhouette coming out of the American flag who appears to have the stand D4C. Wekapipo reaches for the gun and shoots the unknown man, who then falls to the ground and is revealed to be Johnny Joestar. Johnny escapes again through the sewers with Tusk, but this time we see that only the twins witness the shooting. Wekapipo is then approached by Diego similar to before, but this time Diego says everything is going as planned. Johnny Joestar is better left alive. And Wekapipo responds, "You, what were you doing just now? Magenta was alive. You should have known I was tracking you, Dio." So this conversation is happening at the same time and in the same place as we saw before, but this time with slightly different dialogue. And before we even have time to think, we go back in time again to 8 minutes ago.
Oh, I see what's going on right now.
PM, where we see Diego and we continue the next 8 minutes through his perspective. Diego is
God,
searching for Lucy
right
Steele, who is currently in possession of the other corpse parts.
So from what I can guess, from what I'm gathering, they're like warping dimensions and like going back in time, but they're like showing you from different people's perspective.
Diego knows that Lucy has been disguising herself as
so wait,
the
what's
First
confusing
Lady,
about that?
so she should be near or inside of Independence Hall. So Diego jumps one of Valentine's guards, uses his outfit as a disguise, and enters the building. Once inside, Diego is passed by Valentine, and he thinks to himself that this might be a good opportunity to assassinate the president while he's alone. But he's distracted by Lucy when he sees that she's no longer in disguise and her identity has been revealed. So Diego holds off on the corpse parts and goes after Valentine in the streets of Philadelphia. Once outside, Diego passes by Disco and notices he's being followed by Wekapipo, so he decides to use Wekapipo and lure him towards Valentine in the hopes that Valentine and Wekapipo will fight each other so Diego can attack Valentine while he's distracted, which is exactly what Wekapipo is trying to do to Diego. So Diego turns a corner and uses his dinosaur powers to jump on top of the building and waits for Wekapipo, but Wekapipo spots Diego on the roof and shoots at him. Diego attacks back as he falls onto the American flag. He grabs the gun and shoots Wekapipo. Wekapipo falls onto the ground and surprise, it's once again Johnny Joestar that Diego had shot. And from inside the park we see that only the children witness the shooting and that Wekapipo is back in his previous location in the alleyway. Diego then jumps from under the American flag on the ground on top of the roof across the street and he makes his way behind Wekapipo and starts the same conversation using the same dialogue from the first time we saw them talking.
I thought I was following.
The conversation continue.
No, I'm not following right now.
Diego says, "Just now, did you see me shoot Johnny Joestar?
Or am I just
I definitely just shot Johnny and he fell into the drain. But it wasn't me who did it." Diego claims it's Valentine's ability that's responsible for these events, but Wekapipo responds saying, "Dio, are you implying that you are the one who shot Johnny before? I couldn't understand what you were saying because I was the one who shot Johnny." And just moments later, Diego and Wekapipo are attacked by Valentine, and we see our first glimpse into D4C's ability. Being able to access neighboring worlds and bring alternate versions of people
so I was kind of correct. But I guess I kind of misworded it. But like, this is what I was thinking was happening.
For others in between two things, like an American flag and the ground, for example. And right at the climax of the fight, where two Diego's paradoxical existence within the same universe begins to destroy each other, we go back in time again to 4:10 p.m., just 3 minutes before Johnny is shot, and we see Valentine and Disco cornering Gyro from the beginning of the arc. And as Johnny yells out to warn Gyro, Valentine uses D4C to essentially teleport over to Johnny by going behind a tree and coming out in between their horses. Valentine then shoots Johnny, and from within the park we see that only the painter witnesses the shooting.
Only certain people are seeing this happening.
Back in between the horses while leaving his gun on the street, and we see Wekapipo and Diego approaching, and suddenly cut to the two phasing inside of each other, both shooting Johnny at the same time. And from within the park, we see that the children, the twins,
so
and
they're
the
just shooting their own people.
The shooting. And it's finally stated that D4C's ability is to allow neighboring worlds to exist simultaneously in the same location.
Wow, that is busted. Okay, so I watched another video of D4C, Metas, I think the channel's name was Metas, breakdown D4C. This video, but I'm not gonna lie, this video done by this channel broke it down to me so much more better. And like, I guess because he like put it in a whole scenario. But like the way this broke it down, I understood how this stand works.
Whatever that means.
Well, not like just the way he broke it down. I now understand how this stand abilities was able to I now understand how this stand ability is able to do its thing. Because he just basically put like different dimensions and put it all in one, happening simultaneous. That's crazy.
So in theory, after D4C's ability is revealed, it should be able to explain everything that just happened and give us an answer to who shot Johnny Joestar. So let me ask you, do any of you think that you would be able to fully explain everything that just happened from 359 to 413 and determine exactly when and how D4C's ability was being used to create the impossible situations
it's like
we just
Aizen's,
saw? Maybe some of you, but don't
Genjutsu.
worry, I'll save you the time and the headache.
Like even more
that's
complex.
exactly what we'll be doing in today's video. So to start, the first thing we need to talk about are the differences in D4C's ability when it was first introduced compared to what it was established as later on. The first real explanation of D4C's ability is stated to allow neighboring worlds to exist simultaneously in the same location. And this concept is visualized in the next
chapter. We can put like 3 different realities and combine it into one. That's so crazy.
Representing different universes. And D4C's ability allows these two sponges, aka universes, to overlap with each other and become one. And applying this concept to Johnny's shooting to some extent explains how it was possible for 3 different people to all shoot Johnny at the same time. But unfortunately, this ability contradicts what D4C would later become. So let me explain. Going by the sponge theory, that would mean that what we previously witnessed were the events happening in 3 different universes simultaneously. So we have 3 different sponges representing 3 different universes. Sponge 1 being the base universe where Valentine shoots Johnny and the painter is the witness. Sponge 2 being the universe where Wekapipo is attacked by Valentine, shoots him, and the twins are the witness. And Sponge 3 being the universe where Diego shoots at Wekapipo and the children are the witnesses. So originally, it would seem D4C's ability would be able to seamlessly merge all 3 of these universes, making them become one, with no duplicates, but rather replacing certain base universe characters with alternate universe characters. Like how when we first see Johnny get shot, all 3 groups within the park see the shooting at the same time. But in Universe 3, you can clearly see it's only the children that see, and the twins have their backs turned.
Oh, that's detailed.
So that would mean in this cluster of 3 universes combined that D4C created, it can pick and choose who to replace from each universe. As the base universe painter stays the same.
That's some that is some What is that guy from Bleach? Yawak Bak? I don't know how to say his name. I don't know how to say his name. But from the manga, I read the Bleach manga. Yawak Bak has similar abilities, but I don't think he can break it down like this either.
The base universes,
this is even more OP than Yawak Bak's, because like Yawak Bak can't merge it all into one.
This just isn't how D4C works, and in chapter 75, the state gets its ability redefined with its rules established, saying the ability to travel limitlessly to other dimensions by getting caught in between 2 objects. If the same object or people from dimensions meet, they will both be annihilated, so caution is a must. You can't bring money with you for some reason as a rule. And lastly, Valentine is the only exception to the annihilation rule, and the world where the corpse is acts as the base universe. So it may be possible that Araki had changed D4C's ability to something much simpler than what we saw during Johnny's shooting. And maybe even throughout the beginning of the D4C arc, Araki was still deciding exactly what he wanted D4C to be.
Now that I notice his hairstyle looks like George Washington, like those old
accessing different dimensions.
Like, you know, George Washington type hairstyles.
So let's see if we can explain everything that happened in this arc with D4C's ability that would be established later on. So a few chapters after Johnny's shooting, when he's being healed by Gyro, Johnny gives us some insight on what actually happened. And we can trust Johnny because he has proved himself to be an absolute genius at deducing stand abilities more than a few times. So Johnny says, I was shot by Dio and Wekapipo, but it was because of the president's ability. Valentine's body went to a different world and brought another Dio and a different Wekapipo back from that world, and arranged it to make them shoot me. So by going off of how Johnny explains the situation, let's see if that's really what happened. So starting from the beginning, when Johnny and Gyro first arrive, up until the first time we see Johnny shot, there's nothing we can really see that would indicate D4C's ability being used, but we can establish that these first events take place in the base universe. So moving on to Wekapipo's perspective, Johnny claims Valentine brought another Wekapipo from another world to shoot him, and so far that adds up, as we can assume that when we see through Wekapipo's perspective, we are in an alternate universe, because the timeline is slightly off, being 4:05 p.m., and Wekapipo sees Johnny and Gyro still together, when before in the base universe the time was 3:59, right before.
I mean, it's weird. I'm getting confused, but I'm understanding how this guy's breaking it down. Like, I'm understanding how he's breaking it down, Like overall,
so through Wekapipo's
this Stan's abilities
in
are
what
used.
we can call
It's
Universe
crazy.
2, he follows Diego but is attacked by Valentine in an alleyway. And during his fight, right before he shoots, we see that the American flag is falling on him. And in the next page, he shoots Johnny Joestar and is no longer in the same alleyway, but instead on the street that's in front of the park. Which heavily implies that right before Wekapipo shot, he was brought into the base universe and shot our Johnny. Which kind of makes sense and also aligns with what Johnny said. So now moving on to Diego's perspective, which again begins at 4:05 p.m. And we see Diego steal a disguise, go to Independence Hall, see Valentine, leave Independence Hall, and then begins being followed by Wekapipo, which confirms that Diego's perspective takes place in a third universe. Because before, in Universe 2, Wekapipo started following Diego almost immediately at 4:05 when he saw him near the... He led Wekapipo to the alleyway where he would then fight Valentine. And this third universe is further confirmed when we see Wekapipo shoot at Diego, which couldn't possibly be the same Wekapipo as before because this is taking place at the same time when he was fighting Valentine. So Diego from the third universe attacks the third universe Wekapipo, takes his gun and falls onto the American flag. He then shoots at who he thinks is Wekapipo, but it's actually Johnny Joestar. So like Wekapipo, right before Diego shot, he was brought from his universe into the base universe by Valentine to shoot Johnny. And we can see Universe 2's Wekapipo...
He just, from what I'm getting, he's just like picking these people and like taking them into different realities. And then right when they're about to shoot, they bring him back and then they shoot the same person.
In the base universe, still confused by when he first shot Johnny. Which is further confirmed as when Diego approaches this Wekapipo, he makes no mention of them just fighting each other, because this Wekapipo was the one that fought Valentine. So right here, you have Diego from Universe 3 talking to Wekapipo from Universe 2, who are both now in the base universe. So up until this point, things are kind of making sense and starting to add up, but unfortunately after this point, everything begins to fall apart.
Oh,
As you would see, Wekapipo from Universe 2 and Diego from Universe 3 have just replaced their base universe alternatives, and once they get into their fight with Valentine, it's then established that no two versions of the same person can exist in the same universe. Where were base universe Diego and Wekapipo when their alternate versions came into the base universe? Maybe it can be explained that they were swapped out simultaneously, so essentially replacing them, but because there was no mention or even suggesting of that happening, it doesn't seem likely. But now we get to the point where nothing makes any sense anymore, and it's really clear that D4C was breaking all of the rules that would later be established, because the corpse parts are existing in both Universe 2 and Universe 3, as we see when through Wekapipo's perspective, which should be Universe 2, he mentions the eye, and through Diego's perspective, which should be Universe 3, he sees Lucy, who appears to be pregnant because of the corpse parts inside her body. So with the rule that the corpse parts only exist in the base universe, that would mean what we saw from both Wekapipo and Diego's perspectives was taking place in the base universe, and at no point were they brought to another universe by D4C, which just cannot be possible because the timelines don't match up, and we see Wekapipo fight both Valentine and Diego in the same location, which could not be possible in the same dimension. And I haven't even mentioned the witnesses yet, which I guess could be explained that Valentine
that's low-key what I was thinking about. So are these people even like
children from Universe 3
what's
and
real
swap
to
them with the base universes, like the sponge example from earlier? But
like,
because
what's
of
real
the
to
corpse
us
parts
as the
existing
viewer?
in all these perspectives, that would mean the witnesses were actually always from the base universe, even when the twins clearly had their backs turned to the shooting. So nothing makes any sense anymore, and the more I try to understand this arc, the more confusing it becomes. But
Rocky, what are you doing?
One last possible idea that could just
make it simple.
Make sense of this arc, but I'd have to work under the assumption that D4C's ability falls more in line with its overlapping dimensions explanation.
See, if he just kept it at that, that would have been okay. Like, I understood that all that part when he was talking about it.
What we were seeing through Wekapipo and Diego's perspectives were possible realities that could happen within the base universe. Similar to the Schrodinger's cat experiment. For those that aren't familiar, Schrodinger's cat is a thought experiment where you imagine you put a cat in a sealed box with some sort of device that has a 50% chance of killing the cat. And until you look inside of the box to see the result, the cat is in a superposition as it's both dead and alive at the same time. And it's the act of looking to see the result that forces nature to make a decision. So what if originally D4C was some sort of twist on this Schrodinger experiment, but instead of 2 different outcomes, there are 3. Valentine shooting Johnny, Wekapipo shooting Johnny, or Diego shooting Johnny. And until the shooting is witnessed, all 3 possible outcomes are existing in the same place at the same time. Like the cat that could be dead and could be alive. But with the twist from D4C's ability, all possible outcomes are able to be witnessed by different people, thus making the different possibilities a reality. So if this was how D4C worked, this art
has
could
nothing
be explained.
on Yawak Bak.
But unfortunately, that's not how D4C works.
Yawak Bak
so
is like nothing compared to this stand.
I still don't understand what was happening on the streets of Philadelphia from 359 to 413.
And it's in Philly.
And that's why, in my opinion,
were they in the hood too?
D4C and this art
they had to be in the hood. They were just shooting and like
JoJo
nobody came.
Ever gotten.
They had to be in the hood of Philly. Okay, so that's the end of the video. Wow, that is very, very confusing to me. It was very interesting how he was able to, clearly break it down, but still end up being confusing towards the end, especially because like I was definitely following toward like the majority of the video how he was breaking down the stand, and it just threw a curveball and just mentioned some different dimension things and like how certain reality, I don't know, but overall this video definitely helped me understand D4C's stand and like its core base abilities of like putting people in different dimensions and them seeing completely different realities and then putting them back into one reality when like things get really hectic, I guess. But overall, still, this stand is still obviously super, super OP. Wow. The last video I did on this reaction, maybe I wasn't paying too much attention, but this one definitely showed me how super OP this stand is. Maybe because the visuals and like how he broke down specific manga panels really showed me how this D4C stand is completely like god tier. I don't even want to say god tier because what this stand can do is so unbelievable. But yeah, this was a really, really cool and interesting video breakdown of the D4C stand and what makes it so super confusing. I just can't even wait. I just hope that the anime is gonna pick this up because I feel like this is just in the manga. I really want this to get picked up in the actual anime because if this gets animated, I feel like it'll be even more crazy. But yeah, overall, this video was fire, man. I love this video a lot. I'm probably gonna check out a few more videos on this channel, on JoJo related videos, because so far this video was amazing. And I wasn't expecting it to have this really detailed, showing me specific video, like showing me, like visualizing it. I wasn't expecting them to like visually show me different things that's gonna happen during that D4C interaction, but this was really amazing and really well done. Man, shout out to D4C for being the most confusing stand in JoJo. I now see why that stand is so confusing, because it can do so many things at the same time, but like not only defy logic to us as a reader, but also to Araki, because I feel like he himself doesn't even understand what he's like talking about when he's making these characters' abilities, and maybe he might have drew himself into a corner and by like just overlapping and then just like overlapping some abilities that weren't supposed to be there. But yeah, overall it was still a good breakdown of this stand. And once again, I really hope this gets animated into an anime, because like if you guys don't know, I'm a visual creature. So like I'm mainly anime only, but like if some animes don't come back, I tend to just go to the manga and see how it ends up. But yeah, that's all I got for this video reaction, man. If you guys are new, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we're out.